I'm the public affairs coordinator for MnDOT. Sometimes it feels political. I'm pretty new to this job, and so this is one of the first projects that I got to jump into in working with the Owatonna Area Chamber of Commerce and Tourism. And today we'll give you an overview of the project, some of the planned detours, some of the timelines, and a lot of it's about how you can tap into information to kind of help your customers, help your employees, and that's the biggest thing to take away today. You know, nobody likes construction, but I think the end result that you're going to have here with the 35 project, the new bridges, the safety pieces, the acceleration zones, all that, it's a good thing, and it's better for your businesses and your employees in the end. It's just going to take a little time to get there, and hopefully as you understand the project and when these things will happen, that'll help you with your customers and again with your employees. So just hand it off to Jennifer. We'll do some introductions and then we'll get into the heart of the program.
Great, thanks so much. Good morning, everyone. First of all, I think that nothing goes better with construction than refreshments and sugar. So thank you, MnDOT, for those refreshments. In all seriousness, this is a very exciting project. We've got 2 new bridges coming, so that's the great news. The challenging thing is we've got 2 new bridges coming. And so I'm very excited today to see this meeting, to see the turnout, because it's a result of the beginning of a collaboration between the city, MnDOT, the county, and so many people in the community. And at the Chamber, clearly we're dedicated to the prosperity of the community, and construction can be a challenge. So as MnDOT started this process, I think it was last October, the first open house, want to give a big shout out to Lisa Havelka, our Director of Tourism, and Katie Nelson, our Director of Marketing and Public Affairs, because they quickly engaged with MnDOT and with the city and the county to bring this together and to look at some things in terms of what do we need this to look like going forward to minimize the impact on our local businesses. Obviously we've got some challenges, and I know MnDOT is going to go over a lot of the plans and a lot of the considerations they've already given to it, but obviously a big part of the process is getting community input as well. What are some of the concerns and things like that? So I know they're going to go through a very detailed presentation, and there'll be time for questions at the end. And then we're also very excited to have a resident expert with us. Chris has been the owner of a Dairy Queen and has gone through construction and has a lot of extensive experience. So through a partnership with the county and the city and the Chamber of Commerce and Tourism, we brought Chris in today to give us some words of wisdom and what to do and what not to do. So we're excited to hear about that as well. In addition to Lisa and Katie in this partnership, we've again enjoyed partnering with the city, Mayor Tom Coons, Chris Busey and Kyle Scove, and the county with Anita Benson and Bruce Kubicek and many others, as well as many elected officials, and MnDOT as well. Is that better? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? And thank you very much. And then with MnDOT, just a few names: Dan Perkle, Jim Roberts, Mike Doherty, Mike Schwayen, and David Zhang. So again, we're very excited about that, and I know we also have our mayor from Medford here, Lois Nelson. So Lois, thank you for joining us as well. And again, so many other people. Again, I just want to emphasize that obviously none of us want to minimize the challenge that this brings to businesses. And again, we're here to support, we're here to dialogue, and we're here to most importantly come up with some solutions and talk about the success of this project moving forward. So at this time, it's my pleasure to turn the microphone over to Les Abrams.
Thank you for coming. This is a very exciting time for us, and the mayor could not be here, so as president of the council, I am welcoming you all to this, and hope that we can get a very good solution out of this. I know the city will work with the state to get this project done as quickly as possible and as seamlessly as possible. And with that, I will turn it over to Bruce Kubicek, our county commissioner.
Thank you, Les. This is really a good project for the whole area, and it's really good that MnDOT's reached out and put this meeting together and has indicated that they really want to cooperate, because I think that's the key to everything. As Jennifer said, it's great we're getting new bridges, but it's a challenge we're getting new bridges. But by cooperating and getting information out to everybody, it'll minimize the challenges and make this whole project go better. So on behalf of the county, I really appreciate what MnDOT is doing here, and let's move forward and get this project done. And with that, I guess MnDOT is next. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Dan Perkle. I work for the Minnesota Department of Transportation. I will be, as my boss put it, the face of the project. I'll be the project engineer for this construction project here in Owatonna on I-35. And part of my duties as working for MnDOT will be to make sure that the project runs smoothly and that construction goes good. I just want to say good morning to all. Want to thank David Sang. He is the project manager who put the project together, was in charge of design, and now is basically handing it off to us construction folks in MnDOT here in the Owatonna office. We all know what construction can be like, whether you've been on a vacation or just traveling to work and you run into construction, there you sit, tied up in traffic. This project will probably have some of that tied to it, but as part of this meeting here today, which you can thank the chamber for, they kind of collaborated with everybody, thought, you had one meeting about the project, but we're getting a lot of questions on the project, timing, when things are going to be closed, and so they requested that we put together another, excuse me, another meeting so that everybody can be informed, take away with them some information that hopefully will help them, whether they're your business, city, county, whatever local authority are, with what actually is going to happen on the construction project in the next 2 summers, 2014 and 2015. So why we're here today, basically you can see from this picture here, it says a lot about part of the reason why I-35 needs to be reconstructed through the Owatonna corridor. Many of you probably have taken the exit off of County Road 2 onto southbound I-35 and felt, it depends on what traffic's there, but if there's a couple cars and nobody can move over, basically you feel like you're going to be shoved into a bridge rail. It's not a good feeling. It also causes problems because the lane is so tight that a lot of people, instead of actually staying in that acceleration lane when they're merging onto I-35, will jump right out into the traffic lane, which causes a lot of problems. Like I said, the picture kind of says it all. There has been some questions from businesses and the public. Why are we doing it this year? Can we delay the project? And just want to give you some general information about the project and why we can't delay it another year. In an approximation, 90% of the funding for this project will come from the federal government. And if we delay the project a year, we'll be jeopardizing that funding from the federal government. The bridges were built, we'll get to the next slide, I'll show you what bridges are being reconstructed, but the bridges were built in around 1963. They've reached their useful lifespan and need to be replaced. As I said before, safety improvements. In this Owatonna corridor between Bridge Street exit and the exit 42 A and B for County Road 2 and Hoffman Drive, there'll be an auxiliary lane. So basically you'll have 3 lanes, northbound and southbound, two will be for travel, and the third lane will be considered an auxiliary lane. So what happens a lot of times in the corridor here is local traffic will use the interstate to hop from Bridge Street to Hoffman Drive, or from Bridge Street over to County Road 2, or vice versa. So this will allow the traffic to just stay in that auxiliary lane and take the exit without actually having to merge into traffic on the interstate. So that's one of the main consideration with the bridges and the funding, the safety improvements, that this will improve this corridor so much. Another thing why we would not consider wanting to delay this another year is with construction costs, you're looking at anywhere from 3 to 5% inflation, and on a $24 million project, that adds a lot of undue costs to the taxpayers if we delay the project. So basically, what we have here is a project summary. Part of your handout actually includes this project summary. It looks a little different than this, but in the lower right-hand corner of this handout, it has all my information. Has my email, has my phone number, has our fax number. If at any time you guys have questions or concerns, or you see something that you just want to know, my contact information is there. Feel free to give me email, call, whatever you like. Sometimes I might not be able to respond within a couple minutes, but I try to get back to everybody within that same day. One of the things you can notice on here is we're talking about the two bridges. Figure this out. There we go. You can see here, Bridge Street, County Road 2, Hoffman Drive. When we talk about this project, it's been a little confusing for some of the businesses and some of the public when we say we're doing bridge construction, and right away their mind goes to Bridge Street, and they think we're reconstructing the bridge over the interstate on Bridge Street. You can see that bridge is not in yellow. We are not reconstructing the bridge on Bridge Street. What's being reconstructed is the two bridges, southbound and northbound, on County Road 2 and Hoffman Drive, and the two bridges over the railroad, kind of adjacent to Bosch, the Steele County Annex. Winger is over here, school bus company's over here. So you can see some of the project needs as outlined there. Replacing 4 bridges, creating an auxiliary lane, reconstructing the pavement to concrete throughout the corridor. So basically from where Lamond Road crosses the interstate, just south of that, a few hundred feet, will all be concrete through this entire corridor now, which we feel basically is a good thing. It should last quite a long time and keep MnDOT from having to come back in here and do another reconstruction in just a handful of years. So we're looking at this project will, yes, it'll be, construction and kind of a heartache for these next couple summers, but after that, the businesses and everybody within the corridor should be pretty happy. One of the other questions that was kind of brought up was whether this project can be kind of condensed from a 2-year project into 1-year project. And kind of the answer to that question is, if we did that, if we tried to reconstruct the entire corridor within 1 year, we'd have to close the interstate down, we'd have to close the Bridge Street exits down, we'd have to close all the ramps here at County Road 2 and Hoffman Drive, and we'd have to find an alternate route for about 35,000 vehicles a day. And part of the roadway structure and system around this area wouldn't really provide a good alternative to that. And so, with no really adequate roads, local roads to use as a detour, MnDOT changed their focus to how can we stage a project, keep ramps open, that type of thing, to allow access, but yet still get the construction done in a timely manner. So here we start construction, May of this year, 2014. The yellow shows southbound traffic here, northbound traffic here, shows the mainline movement of the interstate and what will be open. So basically, what will happen in May is there will be 4 crossovers that are built. One here, well, one south of here, be a few hundred feet south of Lamont Road. These at the Bridge Street interchange, and then one north of exit 42 that will be used as a crossover. These crossovers will allow traffic to basically be put head to head on the interstate. So first year will be, I'm jumping ahead. The white means that the ramps are open, allowing movement of traffic. So in May, we're basically looking, in a nutshell, constructing the crossovers, keeping all the ramps open, but while they construct those crossovers, the traffic will be restricted to 1 lane while they build the crossovers. Just a quick overview of the project. I don't have a slide for this, but so in May we'll build the temporary crossovers. There's 4 of them. In June they'll remove the concrete and demolish, have demolition of the bridges at County Road 2 and over the railroad track. And this will be on the southbound lanes for the first year. Then we get into July, we'll be regrading the road, building bridges. In August, we'll be preparing the grade for the new concrete pavement and continuing to build bridges. In September, we'll see a lot of concrete paving and finishing the bridges. And then in October, we'll close the last 2 ramps and reconstruct those with 4 lanes of traffic open on the interstate. And that was just kind of a quick overview. The next slides will kind of show what happens in those stages. This is kind of basically the heart of the construction. We have late May through early October. So you can see that the black here shows that southbound I-35 is closed. Traffic has been routed on the crossovers to northbound lanes, running head to head. And because of the bridge construction, these ramps will be closed basically almost the entire duration of the construction from late May to early October. And as you can see here, another thing that will happen is at 26th Street, near the hospital and clinic, the on-ramp onto I-35 will be shut down. Traffic will not be allowed to enter the interstate from 26th Street southbound. And that basically we found on some of the other projects that have happened is when you have a crossover and the traffic on the interstate is merging down to single lane, if you add in another dynamics to that traffic, it causes a lot of problems where people they don't know what to do. Should I let the guy in? Should I go? That type of thing. So this is basically been added for that confusion and to help with backups on the interstate. Another question that has been asked has been kind of about utilities, what's going on with that. And just a quick overview of some utilities that have to be reconstructed on this corridor is when the part of the geometrics are changing, so we had to do some movement of the abutments and bridge piers when they reconstruct the bridges over the railroad. And that has caused some of the city infrastructure that has to be relocated, sanitary sewer, water main, some communication lines, some fiber optic has to be relocated. And that would just be, some of it is part of the construction and others have been asked to relocate before construction begins. Oh yeah, and there is also some culvert replacements that will take place on the project. As you can see here, construct 35 southbound, tell you kind of how the ramps close and what exit it is. And as each stage goes, the different ramps will be closed. So close 26th Street, that's here, Hoffman Drive and County Road 2 will also be closed at those exit off and on ramps onto 35 and County Road 2. That's why they're blacked out there. And that is also something that's part of your handouts, is shows the detour routes, and we'll go over that in a little bit, but has a little bubble on each one that shows when when we think that the ramps will be closed. Another highlight here is just talk quick about the County Road 2 and Hoffman Drive here. There will be some closures on that stretch of roadway. It will be reduced to single lane throughout the project to reconstruct concrete and drainage infrastructure and that type of stuff. But there will be some night work at that location. The contract states that we allow the contractor to close County Road 2 and Hoffman Drive for one entire weekend. We think basically it'll happen in June because that's when they'll have to demo the bridges, and it'll happen from a Friday at 9 p.m. until Monday at 5 a.m. And excuse me, we don't know exactly what weekend that is yet, but once we let the project and have a contractor on board, they'll have to give us their schedule, and then we'll be updating maps and everything associated with that. There also will be 2 consecutive nights where we close Hoffman Drive and County Road 2, and that will be for beam placement on the new bridges. Hopefully we'll get that done. Won't affect too many people going to work and that type of thing. So you can see kind of a slight switch in slides from basically the heart of the construction from late May to early October to the ramp closure at Bridge Street. During this phase or stage, traffic will be allowed to take the crossover, use the exit, get on Bridge Street. Well, we have to reconstruct this ramp as part of the reconstruction, so at some point we had to close that ramp, and what we gave the contractor was a 30-day window to close that ramp and reconstruct it. So this is kind of just an estimated guess, but we think it'll happen in September because the contractor the bridges will be pretty much done. They'll be getting their concrete paving in line, and they'll incorporate that ramp with their concrete paving of mainline Interstate 35. So part of that, with the crossovers and everything and the ramps, we tried to minimize, when looking at the project, tried to minimize the closures of the ramps, allowing on Bridge Street, most of the time all 4 legs will be open because of the crossovers that we're building. But during this construction, 3 legs of the ramp will be open at one time, here, 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 and then this one will be closed. And the same with this intersection. We looked at allowing access to local roads and business by providing these crossovers, minimizing, in the contract language, when those ramps could be closed. Therefore, we were able to allow 3 of the 4 legs of each interchange to be open at once. Kind of mentioned this earlier, but as we led the project in March 28th, we get a contractor on board with the project and paperwork gets handled. They have to basically give us their schedule, and then at that time we'll know more about exactly when these dates are. Obviously that depends on weather too, but it'll give everybody a better time frame and pin it down a little bit more, and we'll be updating our maps, and a lot of that information is going to be updated on our website. And Mike Doherty with MnDOT Public Affairs, he's our coordinator for public affairs. He'll be talking a little bit later, showing some slides, some print screens showing where to find that information. And once again, if you can't find it there, you're having troubles, you'll always have my information on the lower right hand part of that project summary if you need to get a hold of anybody or me. So here we're in October, going to November, and you can see I-35 is now open, 4 lanes of traffic. At that time, we'll be closing the last 2 ramps at Bridge Street going on to southbound I-35. And right up here in black, exit 42B off southbound I-35 onto County Road 2. So basically that's what's going to happen in October. The bridges should be open, I-35 concrete pavement should be done, and we'll be finishing these last 2 ramps, getting ready for winter. Most of the focus here has been on 2014. We just wanted to give you kind of a quick overview of what will happen in the summer of 2015. I think I went too far. There we go. So, once again, in the heart of construction, northbound I-35 is getting reconstructed. We have the same situation where the bridges need to be replaced at County Road 2 and Hoffman Drive and at the railroad tracks. And during that time, these 2 ramps, the one off of Bridge Street and the one 42AB coming down to Hoffman Drive, will be closed. During one of the highlights here on 2015 is there's 2 less ramps that we have to reconstruct. So during this construction phase, there'll only be 4 ramps. Ooh, wrong button. 2 here at Bridge Street, and then the 2 at Hoffman Drive, County Road 2. And then it's kind of similar staging as the 2014 summer, where we get the bridges done, the pavement done, open the traffic up, and then that's when we close the last 2 ramps for reconstruction. This one here coming onto Bridge Street, this one from Hoffman Drive getting onto the interstate. So with that, we're hoping late October 2015, all the construction is complete. Hopefully all the loose ends are tied up, and everybody's life will be back to normal. One of the other things that people were kind of wondering about is there any incentives or anything for the contractor to get done? earlier. There is no early incentives on this project, but what we do have in the contract language is that if the contractor goes over time allotted on the stages, there will be monetary deductions assessed the contractor for those delays in opening up certain stages of the project. So now we get into some of the detours for the project. You'll have a handout for this. It shows the different colors. If you want to ask any questions towards the end, we have larger scale drawings of the printed for the detours in back that we can point at and talk about if you have any other questions. So the first detour covers the ramp closure at 26th Street. Hospital and clinic are located here. You won't be able to get on southbound I-35 from 26th Street, so the detour, official detour, will be in blue here, back to the Forest stop, down State Avenue, over to Hoffman Drive. The next detour is 26th Street to I-35 southbound. So if you're sitting here and you want to get on I-35 southbound, you are not able to, so you'll be directed back to the west on this detour down to Bridge Street, and then allowed to use the Bridge Street exit to get on I-35 southbound. And then the red detour covers County Road 2 to I-35 southbound. If you are on County Road 2, whether you're at work, visiting local businesses, and you want to go on 35 southbound, because that bridge reconstruction here, there's no access onto I-35 southbound. The Hoffman Loop and the southbound exit onto I-35 are closed, so you'll have to go back down County Road 2 to 24th Avenue, get on Bridge Street, take the southbound I-35 exit. And like I said, that is also one of your handouts too. And in the handouts, we put some bubbles or whatever they're called that kind of show, has an arrow pointing to each ramp to kind of, there's so many ramps and stuff, it got kind of confusing when we think this is going to be closed, when we think the other ramp's going to be closed. So we thought those bubbles would help kind of clear things up because it points to actually each individual ramp, giving the time frame when we think they're going to be closed. One more, here we go. Through early September and early October, exit 41, the off-ramp will be closed at Bridge Street, right here. And so there's a detour set up to take get off here. Let's see, detour. So if you want to get on Bridge Street, you're coming down I-35 southbound, your exit is closed, so you can't get onto Bridge Street from I-35 southbound. So you're going to have to take exit 42B, get on the County Road 2, down 24th Avenue, and then there, you're on Bridge Street. And these are the official detours. We know that local traffic and people that live around the area will find their own way, and that's expected. So, but we do realize that Owatonna has a lot going on. They've got One of the big ones is Steele County Fair. Earlier in the year, Corky's Early Bird Tournament. Even have a fireman's convention. I think it wasn't a button festival or something too. With a few hundred people come to town. So MnDOT realized that. And part of that is we're going to, in the contract language, is to minimize traffic disturbance throughout the Steele County Fair, the duration of that. So here we have exit 42B being closed, which is right here. That is slated for a 30-day ramp closure. And it includes, well, it includes this ramp here. So 42B at County Road 2 and exit 41, be the on-ramp at Bridge Street, will be closed at the same time for a 30-day duration. And at that time, while this is closed, southbound traffic will be routed to the Bridge Street exit. Detour will be down Bridge Street, come up 24th Avenue, and there's your County Road 2 access. I believe this is, yep, this is the last detour that we're going to go over here. Bridge Street to I-35 southbound. So if you're on Bridge Street, you want to get on southbound I-35, the detour will be to get on Interstate northbound, make a loop here, and then come back on the new ramp, and you'll be southbound I-35. One of the other questions is kind of if there is maybe an incident on the interstate, what's going to happen? Part of the contract will have a access management person that the contractor has available 24 hours a day to help with those things. Part of that too is once the project has been let and contractor has been decided on, they will have to provide another public meeting, and at that time the public will be invited, businesses will be invited, and I'm not exactly sure when that'll happen. Possibly late April, early May, kind of depends on how fast we get the contracts signed and through. But as part of that too, we've proposed to have kind of basically a sit-down meeting with local law enforcement, state troopers, maybe get the maintenance guys involved in case there is an incident and we have to reroute traffic in a hurry. And also part of that is we will be requesting extraordinary law enforcement, which basically helps us out on Friday nights, Sunday evenings, when I-35 is known to back up in this corridor. And what that does is it provides a law enforcement person on site throughout that duration. Usually it's an 8-hour shift, and we'll be also requesting that too from our construction office. So with that, that's the end of my presentation. Like I said, my contact information is on that first project summary. If you ever need to get a hold of me or you have a question, don't feel like asking it later. We're going to kind of hold questions here to the end so we can get through everybody's presentation. And then, see, we got Mike.
I'll get Chris introduced here.
All right, thank you.
So the construction comes. What happens to business? We have got Chris Ferguson here. Oops, sorry. Jumping the gun a little bit. Mike Schwain has a bit of traffic and some of the signals. And things.
Am I supposed to go next?
Yes,
Yeah.
my fault,
Okay.
my fault, sorry.
Sir. No, that's okay.
Okay.
Sorry, Mike.
That's okay.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming, and I'll see if I can figure out this presentation, or how do I advance it, Dan?
It's that right button with the arrow.
Use this one right here.
Oh,
So
gotcha.
you need that.
Good,
There you are, Mike.
okay,
And then this is, well, yeah.
yeah.
He's a
yeah.
professional, he has his own pointer.
Sorry about that. Good morning, I am Mike. I work in Rochester. I'm the district traffic engineer, and our office gets involved with setting up and signing some of these detours. Also, in terms of our day-to-day job, we're involved with signals, deciding if traffic signals go in. We also set speed limits. As I mentioned, we also do set up the work zones, and on this project, it was especially challenging. I-35 is not just kind of a main street for Owatonna, but it's a critical connection between Minnesota and the Twin Cities and much of the southern USA. As most of you know, I-35 terminates down in Texas, and it's a critical commercial corridor. Very high percentage of trucks, as you all know, and so it's just a critical corridor. So that's a priority for us as well, as keeping moving traffic on 35. The reason I wanted to show a road construction ahead sign is, on one hand, it means we're gonna get an improved road. On the other hand, it means we're gonna have to live with some hassles, some challenges. But the other thing it means to me is that winter's over. That's what I'm really excited about, is that by the time, in Minnesota, by the time these signs go up, it means that the snow has melted, it's time to get things rolling. So I'm really excited about that. We've had a really challenging winter here for snow removal. So that's why I wanted to show that. And what I'm gonna do is just talk about, first of all, I'm gonna just kind of go into the philosophy that we're gonna use in terms of how we manage detours. And before I do that though, I just wanna mention a couple things here. I just want to clarify a couple things, is that even though Dan clarified that we're rebuilding 4 bridges on I-35, but we're also regrading I-35 itself. So the profile, or how the road drives, is going to be very different. And obviously we're going to have those auxiliary lanes between the ramps, so it's really going to be nice. And so for businesses, I think it's helpful or important to focus on the long term and what the benefits are going to be when it's done. And Chris is going to get into that. He's going to have some really good ideas after I'm done talking. So, I do want to thank Lisa and Katie from the chamber for what they've done. They kind of ran us engineers through the ringer on Friday, and we sat down with them, and they're giving us all these questions that we haven't thought about, maybe for a while, and so they were very challenging. So they kind of warmed us up for today. So whatever questions you have, just let us know, and Lisa and Katie will answer them. Oh, sorry. Okay, let's talk about detour philosophy. Anytime we redirect traffic, we set up a detour, there's an additional adjustment period. Some people don't read the newspaper, or they don't pay attention to the radio, so they don't even know what's going on. And so in some cases, we put up signs in advance saying this ramp is going to close next week, whatever. But there is, some adjustment and some confusion, whether it's for your commuters, your employees that are coming to your workplace, also for just the people coming to shop. There's an adjustment because maybe they were just in Owatonna last month, and now they come here and something's different. But we do try to, we don't want to overreact or react too much. We do need to give time, things to adjust. Basically, the people that know their way around town, they're going to experiment and find different routes. They're going to refine their best way to work. Like for me in Rochester, I have about 15 different ways I can get to work. It depends on whether I want to avoid all signals, if I want to do more right turns, and so for locals, that's really important. There will be some congestion. There will be delays. There will be congestion and delays. There's no question about it. But the reason we're all here today is to just talk about what some of those challenges will be, and then our job as MnDOT is to design a project and set up these detours so that they work as well as possible. But anyway, patience is important. And then there's a stage of what I call adaptation and normalizing, where drivers do find different ways, even if, let's say, if you're from out of town, and let's say you come shopping to Walmart once a month. you know, because parts of this project will be going 4 or 5 months, you know, you learn from what's going on, and then you can adapt. And so we do try to give things time. It's really important. And then we have to be careful not to overreact or not to see a problem. Basically, the solution has to fit the problem. You know, we have to be careful that we understand the problem before we react to it. And then also, we want to try to not react before patterns kind of have time to normalize. And so that's really important. It's just to let the system work and let people figure it out. And they can ask questions, and they'll be looking at the websites, etc. People will have concerns. As a business owner, you're going to get complaints or concerns. That's going to be normal. At the DOT, we will get those as well. And we try to answer people's questions. We also, the important thing for us and for business owners is you listen. You know, when people call me as a traffic engineer and complain about this or that, I really try to listen to what's the core issue. And then as engineers, we have to study it, and we decide if we need to react or how we need to react. So, but we do listen, and we do care. We do care. Owatonna is a very healthy, thriving community. It's actually really cool. I've worked here for 15 years, actually 16, and I've seen the growth of Owatonna, and it's really exciting. In terms of monitoring, and I'm not sure how to best get away from the background noise here. You know, MnDOT staff, our traffic staff, in terms of our signal experts, and then our experts in work zone traffic control, we're going to be out on the project. We're going to be monitoring stuff. We're going to be able to make adjustments as we see fit and as is appropriate. And then also we do have some traffic cameras in place along the corridor, and we're going to be using those to monitor how things are working. We have a camera at Bridge Street. We have a camera at the railroad overpass. We have a camera at 26th Street. And we actually used that camera at 26th Street to do a detailed study of 26th Street this past fall. And I'll get into that in a bit. And I just want to let you know that this will work. Obviously, the human condition is that we're afraid of the unknown. Anytime something's changing or we don't know how it's going to go, then we're afraid. And as a business owner, you know, it's very important to you, and we understand that. But this will work, and we'll get through it together. Okay, this is the stage 2 detour. And what this is Dan showed you kind of the general routes. This is an example of the detailed signing. And so during this stage, because we're going to have the on-ramp for 26th Street closed, and just so you know, north is up to the right, and so Faribault is up here, and then Albert Lee would be in this direction. And so because that on-ramp will be closed, and then these 2 ramps will be closed. So for example, for this closure, and of course the clinic is in here. We know there's concerns about access to the clinic. So the detour that's set up for that movement is for people actually to get to I-35 this way. You know, to have to turn left on 24th, to come to 24th. And in this case, when they get to Hoffman, we're not going to bring them this way, which is east, because these ramps are closed. So we have to take them all the way down to Bridge Street. And so that's for any traffic on 26 that wanted to go southbound on I-35. That's our proposed detours, to bring them west, south on 24th, and then across on Bridge. And then for this traffic, the I-35 southbound traffic that was destined for this location, this is actually the, let me rephrase that. This off-ramp will be open, okay? And all of us are familiar with that, and then this just connects to westbound Hoffman, and you can get to the businesses in this area. So that's open. This loop is closed, so the people that are normally coming south on 35 to go east on Hoffman, they won't be able to do that. And so we're trying to pick these people up here with this signage. You know, you're going to have a sign here that basically is telling them about County 45. That the detour for that is to actually exit here at this ramp and then come east to the Steele County system. And then as this sign shows here, you know, we bring people down 45 to Hoffman. And so that's the proposed detour for that segment, is to exit people here at 26 and to bring them across and then down. And then for people here that are on Hoffman that wanted to go south on 35, they're gonna see a sign like this. This is the in-place South 35 sign. So instead of turning left, which they can't do, we're gonna just take them further west to 24th and then take them south. And the reason we're using 24th is obviously it's a much better connectivity down to Bridge Street. As we all know, there's a signal here at 21st, but 21st, just doesn't have good connectivity down to Bridge. 24th is straighter, and it is signalized. The city signalized that a couple years ago. So that's stage 2A, and that's while these ramps are closed. What I'm going to do though is also as part of stage, we're calling it 2A, there is going to be a time obviously when that off ramp to Bridge Street is closed. And as Dan mentioned, there's going to be a separate detour set up for that. And I didn't post the signage for that. I just didn't get to it. But if you have any questions about that, just let us know after the meeting here. Now stage 2B, this is later in the season. This is like September to October. Actually, this is October to November. This is when this off-ramp is closed to Hoffman, and that's when this on-ramp is closed coming from Bridge Street. And so for this closure, what we're showing is via these detour signs is we're bringing people down to Bridge Street, and then the signage, like this sign will say, it's proposed to say County Road 2 businesses, and we might have to rethink that. Sometimes, not sometimes, at MnDOT we get focused on the county system, and we use the county names like County 2. All of you may think, well, I work on Hoffman, my address is Hoffman, and so that's a change that we have to consider if that's a consensus. But anyway, then that detour is following here, and these are the kind of signs. So this would say businesses to the right, and then if you're going up to Hoffman Road or County 2, we want you to get up here, and then that's how we're redirecting traffic to this area of Hoffman. And so that's the detour for that ramp. The detour for this ramp, the off-ramp or the on-ramp for Bridge Street, is we propose to bring people across Bridge Street, then we'll have them take a left onto the on-ramp, and then we're going to bring them up 35, exit them at Hoffman, and they'll turn left there, and then they'll be able to get back on 35. So to go to southbound 35, they're going to just kind of do a U-turn, 180 degrees, using Hoffman. So that's the plan there. Now under stage 2B, this is when we plan to turn on and to utilize a temporary signal there. We have, on all these roads, we've done traffic counts, we've done analyses to look at how traffic will be affected. And here on Bridge, because of these detours and the increased traffic, and because Bridge is already quite busy, very busy, and there is a signal here, our analysis showed that we should have a signal there operating temporary during stage 2B. And then also during the next seasons of the work. So we do plan for a temporary signal there, and that's based on a detailed study we did of the traffic volumes, and we tried to estimate how much additional traffic will show up on that ramp because of these other detours. We're going to have a lot of left turning traffic there in addition to what's there now. So that's stage 2B. We also, another important part of this project to understand is it's not just rebuilding I-35, it's not just replacing 4 bridges, we also have to reconstruct the pavement on Hoffman Drive. So this is obviously under I-35, and that's a very important aspect to realize. And I'll talk as fast as I can here. I hope you guys aren't bored. Anybody bored yet? You're probably just waiting for questions. As you're thinking of questions, write them down. We don't want you to forget any. I have to do my same thing. I've taken some notes of myself. So anyway, okay, on Hoffman Drive, all this pavement kind of within the interchange has to be rebuilt, and so it has to be staged. And so we're here in stage 2A, and again, here we're calling it County Road 2, which it technically is, but I'll refer to it as Hoffman. Okay, what direction are we going here? This is, over here is east, and this is the west side, and so north is up. And we intend to keep this signal functional here, this traffic signal functional throughout all this staging. And I've talked to my signal operations and designers about that, and that's a priority for us. And we're gonna do the best we can there. But this is a case where westbound traffic is shifted to the right because we have to work in here. And then this is a case where eastbound traffic is shifted to the right so that we can work in here. So these are barriers. And then the red arrows are, the traffic flow. So this movement stays open, and this movement stays open, and that's one of the first stages of Hoffman. And then this is the second phase of Hoffman. It's about the same as the previous picture, except that now this traffic eastbound, instead of shifting them to the right over here, we've shifted them to the left, and that's so that we can do construction over in here. And these are just a few of the stages for Hoffman. There's also multiple stages, even the third year. So even the third year, Hoffman is going to be affected. And the reason is because we are trying to maintain traffic through Hoffman, and we can only build certain portions at a time. But we do want to keep that signal functioning. We do want to keep this connection open, again, to facilitate more traffic flow. Okay, 26th Street. There's some concern and issues about that, and I've already told you about how we've looked at Bridge Street, and we are planning to add a temporary signal. I've also just talked about Hoffman, and where we're planning to keep things open and one lane of traffic each way and keep the signal functioning. At 26th Street, we studied this pretty hard this fall because we were concerned too. I don't know how many of you drive through this on a regular basis. Yeah, quite a few. And so it's really interesting. In the morning, there's pretty good, there's flows, but for us, from a traffic perspective, it flows reasonably well. I mean, it works. And part of that is because what we've noticed is because of the various shifts, work shifts in Owatonna, we have people starting to come through here at 5:30, 6:30 in the morning. And that's really nice because it spreads out that flow in the morning. And westbound is the heaviest flow in the morning. As you all know, this is a four-way stop. This is just a one-way stop. This ramp has to stop here. This ramp has to stop. And then this is a four-way stop. And we have a camera right here, a traffic camera, and we have full control of that. So we've studied, we've watched traffic here, we've watched traffic there. We also did special tool counts. And based on our analysis, even though in the afternoon typically, starting around 3, going through 6, eastbound clogs up pretty good in here, right? And part of that is just, how well a four-way stop functions. But actually the advantage of that is, and we've decided that we don't need a temporary signal here, and we've decided we don't need a temporary signal here. And the reason is a couple reasons. We've studied the volumes, existing volumes on 26. We know the volumes on these ramps. And because we've studied how this functions and the fact that there's a four-way stop on each end, we've seen where traffic that's stopped on these ramps, most of the time the traffic that might be backed up on 26, just stops and waits and lets this traffic get on. One of our concerns is we don't want backups on the ramps, because of people are coming in pretty fast and there could be rear end crashes, and we don't want that. We also don't want your people, your customers, or the residents of Owatonna to be having to wait on a ramp for 20 minutes. There are going to be more delays than there are now, but because this four-way stop and this four-way stop, it controls or meters traffic getting into what we call the system. And so, based on that, looking into how these ramps function, we feel it's gonna work. It's gonna work, not great, not well, but it's gonna work. So that's our decision there. Obviously, the clinic has lots of customers and lots of employees, and they come and go. The patients obviously are coming and going throughout the day. The employees show up at certain times, and one of the things that's nice about as an employer with your employees, any flexibility you can show in shift changes or when people have to come to work within reason, that helps. That's something we call travel demand management, and it means that instead of people always doing what they always did before, when we have to do construction like this, it's helpful if we can kind of flex that. I can't say you, the businesses, so as much as is possible, the more we can spread traffic out over a longer time period versus having 50 people show up for their first shift at 7 or whatever. It's something to think about. And it's called travel demand management, and MnDOT, we're not gonna force anything or require it. It's just helpful for people to realize that things are different now. So maybe take a different route, maybe work an extra half hour for free, right? So if I'm at work and I know things are congested, like at my work, and I'll be done here in just a minute, I purposely don't quit at 5 because I know traffic is kind of messed up in Rochester, and so I just wait. I would just work till 5:30 and then I go home, and then I can avoid a lot of that stuff. So flexibility is important. So whatever you can do as a business owner to encourage that flexibility, whatever. There's only so many things you can do. So now Mike is going to talk about how to stay connected, or is Chris going to go?
Chris, come on.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, Mike, those temporary signals, will they have the preemption for public safety?
They'll have to. I mean, we'll definitely look at that. I think the spec right now doesn't include it, but that's something we can look at. I actually have forgotten if you guys have preemption in Owatonna now.
Here.
Yeah, so we'd have to set that up with preemption. And what he's talking about preemption is just so that when an emergency responder is coming, the signal will detect them and turn green so they can get through. That's the idea. And I'm glad that law enforcement is here. We will be working with State Patrol and with local fire, ambulance, also the dispatch center on Pearl Street, just to coordinate, how things can work and what to do when various situations happen. It's very unpredictable what can actually happen. And also crashes on detours aren't that, crashes are generally infrequent. Sometimes during construction, people are even more aware. And so I just, we don't very often have crashes on our detours and stuff, but it sure can happen. But we are going to do coordination. State Patrol works right above me, and we have a good relationship. So, thank you.
So now, we have talked about the construction, and now we've got someone that can talk to you about some of the solutions that businesses can look at that really has a great track record of doing some creative things. And so I'll just introduce you, Chris Ferguson.
Thank you.
So I'll just give you a quick background for myself. We own a Dairy Queen in Minneapolis. Last week was our 10th anniversary of owning a small business. So it's, I think, normally when you own a small business, once you get to 10 years, you're so-called safe. But going through a construction period like we did, and we'll show you some pictures outside our front door, put us in a little bit of concern over the last couple of years. I started my career actually working for MTO, which is the Ministry of Transportation for Ontario, doing the site highway engineering projects, and one of the first projects I ever worked on was closing a bridge in a small town called Brockville, which is actually a tourist town in Ontario, right on Lake Ontario. And they had one bridge that went through the main part of town, connecting downtown to most of the other folks, and they were about 2 miles on either side of town to get to the next bridge. And I will say that having a meeting like this was something we did not do 20 some odd years ago when we did that project. Detour signs went up, and while the detour signs were going up, we were going knocking around on the doors of the businesses to let them know that, oh, by the way, the bridge was going to be closed. I think some people knew, but think about it, back then we didn't have email, didn't have social media, we didn't have a lot of other ways that we got in touch with folks. So I think we've made a lot of great strides, and hopefully some of the things that we learned in our project will help. So our business is located on what's called the Green Line. You may or may not have heard of it. It is the second of the light rail lines that was built in Minneapolis and St. Paul. It was a $1 billion project, I think the largest at the time infrastructure project in the state of Minnesota. This was the view outside our door for our customers trying to get to us. So we had, for 210 days, no one was really counting, but for 210 days, we had a 4-foot sidewalk. At times it was asphalt paved like it is now. At times it was rubber mats. We had a 6-foot high chain link fence and a lot of construction pounding right outside our front door. And so, as you can imagine, as tough as it will be to have the project that you have here, it was really tough to convince customers to walk down, in many cases, an uneven sidewalk, and come to an area where they physically could not drive to or get to. This was in total an 11-mile project from end to end, and we did it in stages. What's interesting, I always tell people, we will do this again, right? So these are the old railroad tracks that were built in the 50s and paved over that went right down the middle of the street in front of our business. One of the things that's important to note on this picture, if you look at the fence on the other side of the road, one of the things, there are no businesses across the street from us. One of the things that we were able to do with the construction team was to talk to them about what are the things that would help the local businesses but may not impact either the construction timeline or any other businesses in the area. So one of the things that they did for us, not because it was part of the original plan, but because we asked for it, because we're thinking ahead, was we closed the sidewalk on the far side. So we didn't have much of a sidewalk, but the other side of the sidewalk was closed, which from a construction perspective actually made it easier because it gave them more room to maneuver. The original plan was to have that open. Well, what does that do? Well, you have a whole lot of folks that are now forced to go and walk in front of all of the local businesses that are open that are trying to get that traffic. So one of the things that I would think about is, the MnDOT folks need to get this project done. The contractor, when they get hired, needs to get this project done. They're not looking to put anybody out of business. And for the most part, many of them are looking to do everything they possibly can to make it as easy as possible in the businesses. So thinking proactively and talking to them about what is possible around the project is very helpful both for them as well as for you. So one of the things that helped us was having in my case, happened to be an engineer by training, but having a couple of people that are willing to get a little bit more detail oriented around the project so they can provide a little bit of advice and guidance to the construction staff from both the contractor as well as the MnDOT people so that they can understand what are the needs. Is there a weekend that you have that particular area is your busiest weekend of the year because you've got a particular sale or festival or something that you have going on, and making sure that the roads are as open as possible for that weekend. We always tell people, it's important for the business owners to get organized early in the process. This is great to see this many people out. We had a very active campaign. We had 700 businesses to connect with. We dropped off information to each one of those 700 businesses. Until the fences went up in front of the businesses, probably about 60–70% of the people didn't really pay any attention to what the time frames were, what the real impact was, and hadn't done a lot of detailed planning, hadn't gotten things in order, hadn't taken advantage of any of the programs and offers that we had. Know what you want. So as a business owner, a lot of times, it's easy for us to complain, but what are the things that, within the scope of the project that might make it easier to get access? Is it the ability to get some additional signage on one of the detour routes? Is it the ability to put up temporary signage in front of the businesses? We were able to work with the city of Minneapolis and the city of St. Paul, who both have long reputations of not being the easiest to work with, to relax signage rules, to allow temporary signage without permit. It was sort of I think through the council members and the mayor's office and other folks, just told the inspecting people to not worry about it for the 2 or 3 months that we were under construction, intense construction for that period of time. So it wasn't that they changed the ordinance, it was just that everyone was clear that you could put up a banner, you could put up a sidewalk sign. As you saw in the first picture, we put signs up on the construction fences. And that, at the beginning, seemed to take almost an act of God to allow that to happen. Because ours was a federal FTA project, and that wasn't really traditionally allowed. But it was sort of a situation where if it wasn't at an intersection where it was blocking visibility for people looking to turn or other things, then we got more flexible. And but businesses were clear that allowing signage and letting people know where to go and that we were still open for business, and if we had any specials or deals or happy hours, that was great added value, and it was something that in many cases businesses didn't have access to before because of the very tight signage rules that exist in a lot of the city areas. Finally, become part of this solution. So, we can, and we did at the beginning, I will admit, as business owners, we can often simply complain about the project. We had a lot of people on TV, we had a lot of people on radio and other places complaining about the project. I think once we realized, and I got involved a little bit later than some of the businesses, but I think once we realized that, this is gonna happen, and the sooner that as a business community you become part of the solution as opposed to simply complaining, and finding ways to work with both the contractor and MnDOT to make the project as easy an impact as possible on the business community, and providing those constructive suggestions, the easier the project becomes. We built a coalition of people to help the businesses along this corridor. So in our case, it was a 3-year construction project. For 150 days, you would have no road in front of your business at all, and no sidewalk in most cases. And so there was a lot of people that felt that many of the businesses without any help would go out of business. We were able to put together a coalition, a group of people, we called it a collaborative, of the business community, the government entities that were both putting the project in place in the 2 cities that the project ran through, and then all the community groups up and down the corridor, the neighborhood associations, churches, all sorts of people pitched in to help to get the word out around really a strong buy local campaign in supporting the businesses. So one of the suggestions here would be, think about who that coalition is. The elected officials were huge help to us. We couldn't have done it without the support. I mean, I had Mayor R.T. Ryback in our business filming a commercial at one point, and anytime elected officials tend to go around, often there's press of some kind that follow them, and if the story is a positive story to be told, then that's a great opportunity for that business owner to get free press, what we call earned media, through that process. We really had a mantra. It wasn't just about surviving construction. We tried to help the businesses prepare, ultimately survive, and then now we're in the thrive mode, and we'll talk a little bit about that at the end. And I think that's often the part that's missed, and in our case even, we're still struggling with that, and that it's once the fences come down, the construction's over, everyone sort of thinks everything's back to normal, and that's not really what happens at the end of the day. So there's work to be done when the project's over. Just quick lessons learned, and I think we're supposed to be done at 11:30, but just quick lessons learned. One is, and this is as much to the MnDOT staff and the contractor, but listen to the small business owners. I mean, many times we found early on was people were ignoring sort of the pleas or the questions that the small business owners had. A lot of it was around access. You saw that narrow sidewalk that we had. I showed up one morning and there were barricades at each end of that sidewalk. So we were like, okay, well, how are our customers supposed to show up today? Should we just lock the door and go away for a while? What do you want us to do? Fortunately, we had built a great relationship with the contractor, and so we called the contractor had somebody out there in about 5-10 minutes, pulled the barricades down, and restored the little bit of area where they had taken out some of the asphalt. But without that relationship, without a good working relationship with the contractor, it would have been difficult. We could have lost an entire day's worth of business, and those are difficult to replace. Not only do you lose that day's worth of business, but all those customers that tried to come, right, are unhappy, may not come again because they're frustrated with construction. They go back to their office and they tell everybody at their office, hey, I tried to go to Dairy Queen, couldn't get there. Don't bother trying until this whole construction mess is over because it's not worth it. So those little things are extremely important, and that really is about building that relationship and having the contractors listen to the small business owners and what they really need. This is a direct communication with the contractor. We started off, and I'm not sure how MnDOT sets this up, but we started off where all of our communication had to go through, in essence, the MnDOT staff. The contractor was not allowed to talk directly with any business. Well, there's a lot of times where things get lost in translation that, the contractor might say, I know you close at, 9 o'clock or you don't open until 10. Is it okay if I do something that's going to block your business until 9 o'clock in the morning? And in many cases, that didn't bother the business at all. and they were out of the way. So instead of having something going on all day, they were able to close access to a particular business for 2 or 3 hours in the morning, get in and out, and be done with it. So in our little area, what we did, we had a block of businesses that closed on a Sunday, not their busiest day, but they closed on a Sunday to allow the contractor to pour the sidewalk from end to end in a single pour. And anybody who's done construction knows doing a single pour versus doing 5 or 6 pours in a block is a heck of a lot cheaper for them. And that offset their cost of bringing the crew in on Sunday and doing it. From the business perspective, 2 of the businesses had their summer party for their staff that day and took their staff and did something fun, and it was much easier for them than trying to explain to their customers how to walk around sidewalk detours for an entire week, which would have been the other option. So really thinking about that communication with the contractor and working cooperatively with them to think about how can you do things maybe a little bit differently, think a little bit outside the box. One of the things that we had that, you know, we've had an opportunity to share what we've done around the country and some other spots here in the state, and you know, one of the things we were fortunate to have was a funding partner. So a number of foundations, 12 foundations around the Twin Cities and nationally came together to put money in a pot that was used for business mitigation was one of the things. There were a lot of other aspects that the funding was used for, but having a source of some funding so that you can you can leverage that money pretty extensively, but having some sources of funding is really, really beneficial. The city of St. Paul put money in, the city of Minneapolis invested some money, but we were able to leverage all those little pots of money. We were able to go to TV stations and get a lot of in-kind donations, but just think very creatively around how you can find a way to, if there's businesses that are able to invest or willing to invest, leveraging that money to get more out of it. As I said, engage the community, so that's really something I would start with now. We had Facebook groups, we had Twitter folks, we had a lot of community groups, we had church groups that would go out, intentionally go for lunch after church on Sunday, or they would get together on, normally they would have maybe be at someone's house on a Thursday evening for for a Bible group, and they would take that group and they would go to one of the businesses and either come and have ice cream, or they would go to some other business along the corridor. But ask for help. Let people know that this is a once hopefully in 30, 35, 40 year time where you're going to have major construction going through this town, and you don't want to lose any of those small businesses. And as most small businesses will tell you, if we lose 20 or 30% in revenue, our bottom line hit might be 100% of our bottom line because so much of our costs are fixed. So it may not seem like it's all of your profits, but if you have a summer where you're not making any money, people still have rent to pay, they have mortgages to pay, they still have taxes to pay because none of those things go away. They want to keep their employees employed. So all the help the community can give, ask for that help and get the community to really rally around the businesses and support these businesses. Positive media stories. We struggled early on. The media really wanted the negative story. The media, all they wanted to hear about was all the problems that existed, quite frankly, why people shouldn't come to the corridor. So really think about, from a business perspective, that you don't want to tell people that it's easy, but you want to let people know that you can get to these businesses, you can come, we need you to come, we want your support, we want your help. If you just accentuate the negative, then people who are listening to those stories really won't be encouraged to come and visit those businesses. They said build support around your elected officials. They all have email lists, they all have donor lists, they all have all kinds of people that they can send emails to. Let them use that. We had our council members, every time they sent out an email, they would always remind everybody who was on their email list to come and support the local businesses that were under construction. The MnDOT, our MnDOT equivalent, also had a weekly construction update, and we were able to get them on the first page of that construction update to highlight a different business, something that's relatively easy to do. We wrote it for them, provided them the information, gave them a picture, but it was a great way for all the people that were interested in the project, or another list of folks that were able to get, people were able to find out about something about some of the businesses. You are going to see a drop in traffic going in front of your business. With some of the detours, depending on where you are, you might see more traffic that's just passing by. But a drop in traffic does not necessarily need to mean a drop in revenue. So what do I mean by that? You're going to have, in our case, we had a lot fewer people driving by. What we wanted to do was convert more of those customers who were coming by more of those potential customers coming by into customers. We wanted to encourage them to come back with more frequency because obviously they found their way there the first time. And then finally, we want to try to upsell them. We want to encourage them to buy more while they were there. So those are sort of standard business things, but I think in these kinds of situations, you want to think about that in a more bigger, bolder sense. Try new marketing ideas. We had the Best Steakhouse, which is an old restaurant on University Avenue, been around 30 years. Didn't have a website, didn't have Facebook, didn't have Twitter, didn't have anything. And we were able to get them set up on all of those. And you know, he saw a lot less drop in business probably because he had more to do from a marketing perspective, and he was able to get the benefit of that. But now he's one of the few businesses that are above where they were pre-construction, post-construction, because I think he's still seeing the benefit of all those new marketing techniques that they're using. Educate your customers. I'm not sure if MnDOT will be able to do this, but we were able to get maps on the Minneapolis side, not the St. Paul side, to give to customers as to how to get to different businesses or different areas and nodes. So you can just email, so if a customer calls you, you can email them, you can post it on your website, make it real easy. As we were talking about, the detours are confusing to figure out. If they're confusing for us to talk about them here, they're confusing for your customers, and especially if it's people that aren't normally coming to Owatonna. So if you have the ability to send them an email, let them explain to them how to get to you, that's a big benefit. Equally, making sure your employees know how to get to you, right? So they may know how to get there from their house, but making sure that they can explain, depending on where the customer's coming from, how to get to your business, and they're not sitting on the phone saying, don't try coming because it's real hard, right? That's, you know, you really want to encourage them and have them have that right messaging while they're talking to your customers. Cross-business marketing, and we'll show you a couple pieces if you have time, but we did a lot of marketing where we had a number of, normally as businesses we often will do our own direct mail or do our own couponing or other things. For the first time we did a lot of marketing that had 30 businesses all together in a coupon book and shared the cost, or we were able to get a grant from somebody to cover most of the costs, and each business paid a small amount. But thinking about ways of creatively doing some cross-business marketing to lower that cost and extend your reach. So if people are really interested around the community of supporting these businesses, you may want to think about extending their reach beyond sort of your normal circle of customers that tend to come back. Bounce back. So once a customer is actually in your store, you know, we use a lot of bounce back coupons to get them to come back, right? So, you know, they might come in for lunch, we'll give them a bounce back to buy a cake because that's a $25 item. A lot of people like a cake, especially DQ cakes in the middle of summer, but do something to encourage them to come back to the restaurant. And, you know, it may not be what you normally do, but, you know, in this sort of unusual circumstance, think about maybe extending from a couponing or other offer perspective what you might normally do. Finally, good offers and great service. So I think it's an opportunity. Realize that people have made a special effort in many cases to get to some of the businesses that are impacted, and if you own one of those businesses, we heard time and time again from some people that they would go to a business that was hard to get to, and all they heard from the business owner or the staff were them complaining about nobody was coming, construction, et cetera, et cetera. So they didn't go back, right? Whereas they would come to our business and we'd say, yeah, thanks a lot for coming. Realize it's a little harder than normal to get here, but we really appreciate all your business and we really appreciate you coming. Next time you come back, here's a coupon for a cake. We'd love to see you again next week, right? So you're not dismissing the fact that there's construction, but it's how you portray that to your customers and how you portray that to others around you that really has a significant impact. So just, we did a lot of different promotional pieces. So from bags, we actually were able to get people to put up signs in their front yard so that it wasn't just, people who we were able to connect, but people were wondering, what is this Discover Central Corridor campaign? We did a lot of different mailing pieces, which we can share and we can leave sort of some samples of. I gave you all Band-Aids. One of the things that I think is interesting is to think about it. If it's a small wound, and you put a Band-Aid over it, you can heal pretty quickly, right? But if you forget about it or you let it fester, right, then it becomes a lot bigger problem. So if you have problems on the construction side, you have access issues, you have problems you're hearing about from your neighbors, talk to the MnDOT staff, talk to the construction staff. The last thing they want is a press release or some media story about the 20 businesses or 10 businesses that went out of business because of construction. that doesn't help anybody. So I can tell you that I'm pretty sure that all of them will do what they can to make sure that this project goes as well as possible. But do what you can to let them know if there are challenges so that they can help. Sometimes it's, as I say, it's marketing with some of the businesses in your area, working collaboratively, and work with all the people that can possibly help you in sort of like generating ideas and thinking about creative ways of getting people into your businesses. So, with that, if there's any questions, I know we're over time, so.
We're good. Thank you, Chris. That was great. Okay, and one of the keys is information. So I'll just walk you through some basic ways that we thought are good. Everybody gets their news differently. I come from a newspaper background previously, and that's just one way people get their information. There's a lot of different ways, and we've tried to address some of that as well as point out how to work with the chamber. They're going to utilize their mailing lists as well to reach you folks. So just a couple quick ways that we'll go through here. First off, MnDOT has project websites. This is what's up now. As the project advances, contractors selected, those sorts of things, we'll put those in. If you look towards the bottom, how to connect, afterwards, go to the site. You can sign up for project updates. It's a quick contact email device. So when we add content to this website, you will receive an email that alerts you. There's a detour coming up, there'll be a road closure, any sorts of things like that. So it's good long-term information. There'll be maps as well. So this is a great place to reference your employees, groups that are coming to town, just to get familiar with it. Another way is Twitter. This is more immediate, and such as today, I put out just a reminder that there was a meeting today. While we're at the meeting, I took a picture of Dan and tweeted that. And so it's very immediate, it's short, but often thought when we talked about emergencies, if there's a crash or something, by the time you get a press release, that's probably after the fact. Twitter's very immediate. You don't have to sign up for Twitter. You can go to our Twitter page here and you can follow along each thing that we put out. There are links then that can take you there. There is a sheet, I know, among your packets that has all this as well. Facebook. This is not the Facebook page, but this gives you a sense of the type of MnDOT Facebook pages. And we will have one. I did get approval to have one for the Owatonna I-35 project. So if Facebook is one of your great conduits for news, this is going to be what we'll do. Everything that we put up on our project website, we plan to put here, additional photos, things like that. So if that's your comfort level, it's also a great way to get your information there. And then finally, there's lots of media in town. And I've spoken with everyone so far. There's great interest. The two papers are interested in doing a weekly construction update. We're not sure exactly what day that will publish, but just kind of reiterating, there may be some weeks where things really don't change with the project, but different people will read it. Also, the radio stations, we're interested in doing some regular updates, also partnering up when the chamber has their appearance on some of the stations. So when there's significant milestones or things like that, we'll also be there. And then also the community access television. Dan is going to be taping a session on there, I believe, later this week. And so that'll air. So there's lots of different ways that you get information, and your friends, employees do. So this is just a number of ways we're planning to reach out. Everything that we post on our project website will get out to these folks, as well as our Facebook and through Twitter. So hopefully one of those ways you'll feel connected. And then also working with the chamber, they have their own mailing list. It's a membership group. You pay for your membership, and that's one of the things that we want to work with them to get them the information to get out to you to tailor it to a business perspective. So
Katie with the Chamber. Thanks for coming today. As Mike mentioned, we're happy to continue to be a partner in this during construction and be an outlet for the information. So you can find through our sites too, through visitowatonna.org, a link to the MnDOT information, as well as owatonna.org. On our homepage, we have a link there for you as well. Happy to continue to partner, share their Facebook posts. If you want to like us, we'll get you there. We'll repost their posts as well from Facebook. And then weekly, or as timely as Mike mentioned, major project updates. We're happy to shoot that out through our email system to our members as well. So if there's a way that we can help connect you to the project, please let us know.
And that does wrap things up. Chris, Mike, Dan, some of the folks that are around, if questions occur to you during there, if it's specific to your business or your situation, please stop by and talk to us. Again, there's lots of contact information on the packets that you received. But thank you for coming, and please let us know if you have any questions.